folks, we're in uncertain times when it comes to the virus outbreak, when it comes to politics, when it comes to other issues facing us in the world today. And when we deal with uncertainty, walking through darkness, how do we keep hope? And also there's the ever-present balance between fear and faith. And so to talk with us about this today, we have Perry Gauthier. He's the founder of Capital Studies International, which does Bible studies with the U.S. government and other governments around the world. So Perry, it's a real pleasure having you on Crossroads again.
Thank you, Josh. It's good to be with you again. Saw you last in D.C. and enjoy being with you. I appreciate the epic times and your efforts to just give us the news. And greetings from Nebraska, where we're at. And we really kudos to you. We appreciate and great coverage of the election night. We watched 5 or 6 hours, and you guys did a great job.
I really appreciate it, Perry. Now, given where we're all at, on the election, talking right now, we still haven't seen a result on it. And I think Americans, both sides of the aisle, are feeling, I'd say, concerned about the future of the country. I think really when we look at history, though, history has always had uncertainty. We look at wars, we look at, say, different political outcomes that were not in favor for a lot of people. How do we deal with this from a faith perspective? And I know you also specialize in U.S. government history. What do you think in terms of this? How do we cope with issues like this?
Yes, that's a great question. And there's a lot of concern, in the Bible from a Christian perspective, with the Judeo-Christian ethic, we'd have the Old Testament and the New Testament. And in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon said that when the righteous rule, the city rejoices. But when the wicked are in power, the people groan. So there's a lot of corruption in politics. I'm not one that says politics is a dirty word. And there are many pastors who do. And I think that's unfortunate because politics is just the science of governing. But from the Judeo-Christian perspective, Josh, the view is this. Not only is this a real issue, how does a government conduct itself? Does it bless the culture, help the culture, or might it crush, use, and violate the culture? Well, that's a very real issue. But when the people find themselves in pain, we've got the panic of the political climate right now. From a Judeo-Christian perspective, the answer is you look upward. And in 1 Timothy 6:15, and also Revelation, the last book in the Christian Bible, Revelation 19:16, God is called the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And so what that says to a Christian, especially a pastor like myself, trying to minister in the political realm, is that while this is vital, this whole realm of governance and political officials and rulers, while this is all critical, there is an answer and a source of ethics and a source of comfort that's higher than the government. Oh, you mean there's something higher than a king? Yeah, the King of Kings. So maybe a starting point of perspective would be that we're to look to heaven, we're to look to eternal answers and to principles beyond ourselves. So I don't think I'm just a soft robot. I don't think I'm just an electronically evolved beast. I believe that there's a higher power. And so in a time like this, I know personally, me and my wife, Faith, who you have met, we're praying a lot. We're looking up to heaven and we're saying, Lord, oh Lord, help our land, heal our land, help. We care about all countries, but we live here. And so it's like, oh God, would you help our country? Would you break through? And we'll look to you. There's a saying, no matter who is president, Jesus is king. So there's that divine perspective of as important as this is, and it's quite important, there's a perspective higher than the president. There's the king of all presidents, and we would say that is God.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is also, I think, a universal value principle as well. I know studying,
Yes.
of course, political thinking in the East, some of the
Right.
different guides for kings talk about the same principle, that the stability of the nation is on the king. And they talk
Yeah.
about how the king is a reflection of the people, meaning that, for example, if there was a famine, oftentimes the sage kings in some ancient China, for example, they'd oftentimes fast, they wouldn't eat for a long time, and they'd search for answers in themselves in terms of why their country was suffering. And they believed oftentimes that was caused by some misdeed of some kind that had to be remedied, and they would look for what the cause of that was and try to fix it. We see now that people feel helpless, though. I think in the current state of things, we have two problems in society, as far as I see it. One is that you have a lot of people under the more socialist mindset who don't believe in a power higher than government. One of the, atheism, communism is an atheist system. It does not believe in a power higher than government. And so government then becomes essentially God. It is in charge of establishing heaven on earth. And they look to government for that purpose, to give them everything they need in life and to no higher power than that. And when they see the powers that be in the government not serving that interest, it's almost like the universe itself in some ways is working against them. And I think that there's a real deep internal conflict that takes place that it's much deeper than people who do believe in a higher power can understand, I think. And we see a lashing out and a hopelessness and burning in riots and these things when that does happen. But at the same time, recognizing, I think, that government isn't the end-all, be-all, that there's something greater than us. That's a really deep principle, actually.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's well said. The secularist in our new podcast, The Capital Minute, I just talked about this because it was a Q&A episode, and in that Q&A, the question was, should Christians be political? And are Christians turning people off because they're political? So I kind of launched into that whole thing and talked about the responsibility to be involved in the government in which we find ourselves. But if government thinks it's the be-all and the end-all of everything, that's a problem, because the state will start to worship itself, and we call that stateism. And the state's a good thing, but stateism, like so many isms, is a bad thing. And so the state will swell, and especially if they've left God out. Because if there's a God who's ruling the whole deal and all segments of culture, marriage, family, commerce, the church, if there's a God who's delegated those segments of culture and he's over them, and government is also a segment that is his idea, that people need to be ruled and governed, but governed well and governed with true and right ethics. So if he's over the whole deal, well, then guess what government has to do? They just have to be sure they do their job as it touches on these other institutions. But in an atheistic, especially an atheistic society where they say there is no God, then this had better get real big, because there's no God. And so they almost pat themselves on the back and say, we will solve this. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And on our podcast, I said, because the caller said, well, should we be involved in government because it's secular? And I said, well, that's not really true. It can be secularistic depending on who's in power and their worldview. But for Christians in America, with our great Christian foundation, we should not say government is only secular. So the word secular comes from the Latin saecularum, which means related to a period of time. So I like to say that the secularist, or the secular humanist, which the Supreme Court has ruled is a religion, the secular humanist, he has no upper story windows. There's no light from heaven. There's no answers beyond. His shoes are nailed to the floor. And sometimes that produces a zeal, because if it's going to be, it's up to me, says the humanist, where the Christian lawmaker, legislator, governor, king, prince, president, he would say, one nation under God. And, oh, Lord God, help us do right, because you're on the throne, you're King of Kings. So what a difference between a secularist who says it's all about time. I'm going to drop in the grave. There's nothing more. And by the way, while I'm doing my deal, deciding what the rules are, What the ethics are, I'll make them up as I go. I'll make them up as I so please. If that's the secular humanist mindset, and there's no greater ethic, there's no better religion than the religion of secular humanism, then government has to swell because it's big brother and it is going to watch and it is going to control. And I think they pat themselves on the back thinking they're doing well. They mean to fix this mess. Well, the problem is this very attitude of secular humanism, for example, is part of the cause of the mess.
You know, this is an interesting principle. I've been reading, for example, I talk about it oftentimes, that one of my favorite writers, Ludwig von Mises, in his book, Socialism, again, I mentioned it frequently, I know, on those of you who watch this show, talks about some interesting principles on this, on interventionism, and that interventionism really eliminates one of the main pieces of a natural society, which is the feedback system, the ability for something to fail. And you know, when you eliminate the possibility of failure, you eliminate the idea that things that can withstand, that can stand normally without the need of foreign assistance or outside assistance, to be able to sustain themselves. Okay. And if you subsidize failure, essentially, or for example, having top-level government policies that affect the entire country without taking into account the nuances of individual needs or how things differ in different parts of the country and so on, not only do you institutionalize something that might not work and maintain it through subsidies, you eliminate the ability of things that would work from competing. You put success out of business. And you know, it's interesting that when you look at the older utopians, a few books I've been reading on this, Utopia, the Perennial Heresy, for example. When you look at the utopians, people try to create heaven on earth. You know, utopia, it's the Greek word, right? No place. It's not meant to exist.
I heard you say that.
That's the idea.
Yes.
And so when people try to create it through external means, ironically, oftentimes it has the opposite effect. It's oftentimes the interventionists, the utopians, who make worse the problems they observe. And it always raises this question of human action. Something, again, Ludwig von Mises has written about, and a lot of people who write about government tyranny write about. To what extent does action, to what extent should the powers of government extend if through action itself, trying to eliminate suffering, eliminate problems, oftentimes ends up having the opposite effect?
Yes.
The way I've been thinking about this is you're dealing with the issue of whether you're supporting a person morally, whether you're supporting a person and strengthening them so that they can stand up on their own, versus providing them external means that subsidize failure, that maintain the state of character, the state of strength, and the state of where they're at currently that is the cause of failure. Oftentimes, sometimes it's not, but oftentimes, rather than helping them resolve those things, to strengthen them so they overcome the adversity in their lives and are able to stand independent, facing the natural adversity of the world. Because otherwise, what do? We try to eliminate all adversity in the world. And once you do that, pretty soon you find you've torn down a good part of it. Perry, I'm curious how, from your perspective, from more of the, of course, biblical perspective and perspective of the founding fathers, how does this fit in with that? And do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I definitely agree. I'm looking here on the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. So that's part of the government's job. Provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We do ordain and establish this Constitution. So here's this preamble saying part of government's job. Reagan says, where'd he go? I've got my, I have a lot of fun props in my office. Can you see that, Josh? That's my Ronald Reagan bobblehead. I've got a few bobbleheads in the office. Well, one of my Reagan favorite quotes is, "America is great because America is good. And if we ever cease to be good, we shall cease to be great." And I think we're in great trouble because the goodness that we should have had as a people, and we can talk about this too, if you like, the moral fiber of the people, and what did John Adams say about that related to this constitutional government with its representatives. But back to the preamble to the Constitution, um, part of government's job is to ensure domestic tranquility and to promote general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty. Well, liberty is freedom. And so the unalienable rights, three of the, what did they have, 27 unalienable rights, the founding fathers, but the three that they list are life, liberty, and their pursuit of happiness. And that's the happenstance to be about your business with your liberty, with the life that hasn't been wrongly taken, so that you can, for your posterity and for yourself, enjoy the fruits of your labor within equal opportunity. There's not going to be equal outcome, but within that, if government will simply provide a framework of general protection and overall justice against the greatest problems, then the people in the American constitutional historical flow of things, the people will be just fine. And if the government overreaches, and if the government oppresses and crushes, somebody said on social media this morning, what are we becoming? The USA? We don't want to become socialist, right? We're the United States of America. We're a constitutional republic. So I think part of my answer would be part of the government's job is to govern over, but only in the highest and most necessary things for the good of the whole country. Other than that, there's states' rights, and as you know, Josh, the Constitution is a limiting document for the federal level, but everything else not enumerated therein, it's to the states. Why? Because each state then wants to have its liberty, where its people walk in freedom and they prosper in happenstance and happiness to the best of their ability with the life that they have been given. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking or touches on part of it.
Yeah, no, I think spot on. Now, I think the other thing a lot of people are struggling with right now is the idea of fear, because
Yes.
uncertainty naturally brings fear. I was
Yeah.
reading some, I can't remember, it was an old book. It said something interesting. The only part of the book that actually stood out to me, but it said that fear is faith in evil, and it
Mm,
talked about the nature of fear and the nature of evil from that
mm,
perspective.
nice.
It was a Christian book. I can't remember. It was about like the public speaking, I think, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
but but from that Christian perspective.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to me that principle, because I think that is true, that fear is a faith in a bad outcome when you
Yes,
fear something. And
exactly.
of course, sometimes there are bad outcomes. Sometimes the
Right.
world does throw things at us that are not good. The question,
Yes,
I think,
right.
is how do we deal with that? How do we not let ourselves be crushed by fear? What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
this, Perry?
Yeah, that's a great thought. I love that, Josh, because I actually teach and believe that fear and faith are the same thing. And I know what this quote's saying, and I know what people so often set them at odds with each other, and it's rightly so in this sense, because we mean faith to be the positive thing, and we mean fear to be the negative thing. Okay, so well, I fear that I might have cancer, or that my son in the army might not come home. That's a negative. That's not desirable. And if I dwell on the possibilities of that, that fear is very unsettling. Um, but faith in this little scenario would say, but there's a God in heaven. He's not like King of Kings. He's the Lord of hosts. He's the Lord Sabaoth in Hebrew, which means armies. So he's the Lord of all armies, and he can take care of my son. And you know what? I can pray and I can hope, and I'll be honored that he's serving his country, even if it takes his life. That's an honorable thing. But I have faith in God. So that's what we mean. You want to have faith and not fear. Okay, but let me mix it up here. I like to say this: faith and fear are the same thing. Because over here, you know what, Josh? I have faith. I really believe my son could die. Ah, that's scary. And let's say I focus on that. I have a lot of faith in he could die, he could die, he could die, he could die. It's like the person that has to wash their hands because they're a germ phobe. Wash them, wash them, wash them, wash them, wash them. Wow, you got a lot of faith in the fear of germs. And you're showing that your faith is in what you're afraid of. Now, let me switch it over to this realm, because guess what it says in Proverbs? Solomon, the wisest king that ever lived, he wrote in chapter 1 of the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. Really? And when Jesus walked the earth, he said, you believe in me, uh, have faith too in the Father, because in Christianity we teach the triune God, one God, but in three persons: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So, have how is it that the same Bible can say fear God? Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Here's the conclusion to the whole book: fear God and keep His commandments. Solomon says the beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord. And yet the Bible's filled with statements: have faith in God. So let me combine them now. Fearing God, that He is all powerful and He's holy. There's consequences for our actions down here. If we commit treason, if we commit murder, if we are thieves, if we are adulterers, if we do all manner of bad stuff, there is a God to whom we'll be accountable. Oh, I guess people say that'll put the fear of God in you when you realize that there is indeed a God to answer to. Is He watching or not? If He's not watching, who cares? Do anything we want. The cat's away, the mice will play. So on this end, you see how fear and faith are the same thing? I believe in God and I fear Him, and I believe that reverencing Him and fearing Him in a healthy way, just like I fear a hot stove. Man, it cooks our food good, but I respectingly fear touching that thing. So, what I'm saying is that I think fear and faith are the same thing. Here's the issue: what are you going to focus on? Are me and my wife going to focus on the potential that Aaron in the Army could be deployed to Korea and never see him again? We're going to focus on that? Are we going to be proud of the fact that he's doing what he's doing? We can pray as parents. We care. We love our country. We love him. Uh, so we will have faith in the we'll have faith in the possibilities of what can go well, and we won't be paralyzed by the fear of what could go wrong. Now, I don't know, Josh, if that made sense, but faith and fear are both a focus, and they're both looking at something really um, with real intensity and belief. And so back to the crisis, whether it was COVID before the election and now this, it's like, I mean, we still have a president, right? But who is our next? We got to know. And what's going to happen? Is there going to be rioting? Is there going to be unrest? What's Antifa going to do, etc.? So even though these are real dangers, the Christian perspective would be have your eyes on God, realize He's in control, and we can be at peace of His sovereignty in the world. And at the same time, we take proper precautions. We protect ourselves. We walk in wisdom, and we do what we should at this level. But we look to heaven, because we've got windows in our upper story, and we say there is a God, and He does care. If for God so loved the world, He sent His only begotten Son to live a perfect life and die for the sins of the world. That's the heart of the Christian message. Well, if He'd love us that much, do you think He cares about the stressful things we're going through right now? And He really does, but it is unnerving. So that might be, I hope that wasn't too complicated, but I really love what you had read, because I think fear and faith are the same thing. Is what are you revering, and how much do you On the negative, we'd say obsess about the bad. You're going to get an ulcer. You're going to be in knots. And it isn't that there aren't bad things. But then faith, to use that positive word, it really is just a strong belief that there is good and we can focus on the good.
Hey, Perry, real pleasure as always. Thanks again for being on the show. Thank you.
Yes, Josh, thanks for having me. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And maybe in the future we can talk about patriotism in the country being so much at unrest and so many domestic enemies seemingly trying to destroy this country from within and some from without. That might be a good show in the future. But I always love being with you. You're a thoughtful man and a kind individual, and I think your outfit is doing a great job. So thank you.
I appreciate it, Perry. Thanks as well.
Okay. Take care now.